In mid-Advent, we looked at the text where John is baptizing in the desert. I noted during that time that the lectionary wizards cut the text so that we are left longing for the one who is to come, Jesus. And I suggested that really it's a violation of the integrity of the text. Once again, I want to expand what the lectionary wizards have given us and tell a little bit more of the story. I will start at the beginning of the story as we think about the beginning of Jesus' ministry. But before I get to the story, the tip I want you to think about today, I learned in seminary with my preaching professor, Kathy Malotky. She talked about the respect and care with which we should handle the word as we offer it to the congregation. And she had us do a little pantomime that went something like this. Imagine I have a bowl of Tupperware and I'm handing it to you, right? I handle it fairly casually and without much care. Maybe I have a bowl of cereal that's carrying some milk, and so I handle it with a bit more care and give it to you. Or I think of the Christmas gift I got my wife this year, a lovely ceramic bowl, and with that I handled it with a great more care. And this past year I've been helping my family clean out my mom and dad's house, and my dad collected antiques, and among them some glass bowls. And so if I picked up that glass bowl, ancient, very storied, it carries stories of how my family received it, and times I saw it at high points in our life together, I handle that bowl with greater care. The biblical story is a vessel carrying a great many things, ancient and precious because of the stories it holds. And so as we think about the prologue of John's Gospel and the baptism of Jesus, I just want you to know all the echoes that are folded into this story by the one who composed it. It starts out, the beginning, echoing the Genesis story. The good news, the beginning of the good news, echoing Isaiah's promise of one whose feet are blessed because of the good news he brings. It talks about the anointed one conjuring up memories of prophets and kings of Israel, the Son of God, invoking the Psalms which spoke of the king as such a son. And then it goes forward. It brings Isaiah into the present moment, promising a way through the desert. And how can we think of Israel's story without knowing that the way through the desert was the travels in the Exodus, post-Exodus story, and how Israel picked up that story when it found itself in exile, hoping for God to find a way. There's John wearing clothes which invoke the presence of Isaiah, of Ezekiel, of Elijah. And there's the river Jordan, the place where Israel crossed over into the promised land, where in fact Elijah was taken up into heaven, last seen in this place. All of these elements come together and provide an energy and a memory within which the baptism of Jesus is held. And so, as I tell this story, I try to hold all those elements in. The audience may not know exactly what I'm holding, but I hope in the way that I tell, the preciousness of the story is held. Let's try it. The beginning of the good news of Jesus, the anointed one, the Son of God. just as it was written by Isaiah the prophet. Look, I'm sending my messenger ahead of you who will pave your way. The voice of one crying out in the desert, prepare the way of the Lord, make his paths direct. And it was so. John baptizing in the desert, proclaiming a baptism of turning around for the pardon of sins. And the whole Judean countryside and all the Jerusalemites came out to John and were baptized by him in the Jordan, publicly admitting their sins. Now John was clothed in camel's hair. He had a leather band around his waist. He ate locusts and wild honey. And he was saying, the one coming after me is more powerful than I'm not worthy to stoop down and untie the strap of his sandal. I baptize you with water. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. And it was so. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee, and he was baptized by John in the Jordan River. And as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens ripped open, and the Spirit, like a dove, coming down on him. And there was a voice from the heavens, you are my Son, the beloved. With you I am so pleased. And the Spirit drives him out into the desert. And he was in the desert for 40 days, tested by Satan, surrounded by the wild beasts. And angels were serving him. The value of doing that inventory of the stories that are connected, and I've only began to touch on them this time, is that it deepens for us the stories. So our preparation to proclaim is also our own spiritual practice. I pray that as you tell this story, you hear the voice of God affirming you. You are my beloved. With you I am so pleased. And having heard that voice for yourself, you will be prepared to share it.